And Yahweh said, If, as one people, with one language for all, this is how they have begun to act, then nothing that they may and propose to do will be out of their reach. Let us, then, go down and confound their speech there, so that they shall not understand one another's speech. This is the story of Babel, an important moment in the development of human language. It is also written in Genesis chapter 11 that back in time, people shared the same language after the flood all over the world. So they came up with the idea of building a city named Babel. However, when God finds it out, he realizes that human beings are becoming too powerful than he could ever imagine. Therefore, he takes this united language away to stop human beings from communicating with each other. By doing so, he completely changed the world. People in different places start to create their own languages. Take English as an example. It is a phonetic language that uses the alphabet to allow speakers to sound out the word. However, in my mother language, Chinese, the basis of language, or you can say characters, is ideographic symbols that means nothing can be sounded out. Chinese characters come from drawings on animal bones. They are, in some ways, like picture. There are elements called radicals that hold meanings. So while you can't sound the character out, you can still put meaning from the characters. Take the word woman as an example. The ancient character of woman imitates the gesture of a seated woman, and developed from this character, more characters are actually created, like this word on the right, a woman with a big belly and baby in her body. That means pregnant. Of course, not every character follows the same logic. More characters in Chinese are created through their meanings. For instance, the character of man can be divided into two parts. One of them means the land, and the other one presents the tool people used at the time to soil the land. Isn't that a familiar story? To Adam he said, Because you did as your wife said, and ate from the tree about which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed be the ground because of you. By toil shall you eat of it all the days of your life. That's how I relate Chinese to Genesis, through stories. I believe my mother language contains meanings and stories itself, in the way it is written and in the way the knowledge is passed. Say the word boat. Here means a big boat like the ark in Chinese. Dividing it into 3 parts, you can easily tell the story of 8 family members on the vessel, just like what Noah did during the flood. 8 family members, including him and his wife, 3 sons and their wives, surviving from a vessel, the ark. I found more examples through research. The character good can be divided into the character of woman and the man. This is a tricky one because in simplified Chinese, it is a character made by a woman and the son. However, I don't believe in this interpretation a lot since I don't think the son preference existed so early. So I would like to interpret it as a woman and a man. Just like what Genesis 2 said. And the Lord God said, It is not good that a man should be alone. I will make him a helpmate for him. Also, and the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made him a woman, and brought her unto the man. There is another character, which contains the meaning of greedy, is created through 2 words. One is the word of woman, and the other one is the woods. It is interesting that the woods is actually a combination of 2 trees. You can see there is a tree on the left and there's one on the right. It does remind me of the tree of knowledge and tree of life, and it is very interesting that Eve's action of taking the fruit from tree of knowledge as a greedy to knowledge. Here comes the most interesting character in my mind, beginning. You can divide beginning into 3 parts. One is woman, the other one is mouth, and the last one, maybe you can interpret it as a serpent, because, in simplified Chinese, a lot of people interpret it as child, but for me, it really looks like a serpent. In this way, I think there is a close connection between the word of beginning and the story of Genesis, since the beginning of this word in Genesis is actually the date when Adam and Eve are expelled from the Eden because Eve ate the fruit. I picked up the topic of language because of the inspiration of Hebrew. When we're talking about the word Adam, Dam, and Adama, which means human, blood, and soil, I think there are some meanings hidden behind. When we're talking about the idea that blood to life means similar from soil to earth, I can see that earth is provided with life, and I can feel the connection between human beings and the earth. What I am trying to point out here is that when we're looking at those Chinese characters, we're not really looking at a language, a way for people to communicate, but also a way to preserve knowledge, to let stories passing by from generation to generation, just exactly like the way Genesis did in the West. Throughout this course, I gradually believing that language is actually a collective memory of human beings, because even though we're not speaking in the same language, or we're not talking about the same thing when we communicate, we all share those same stories, the same collective memories from the language we're using. And this is the reason why that makes human beings different from other creatures. And this is also the reason why we are becoming who we are in the modern era.